Hello. So far, we talked about different components of costs and how to figure out whether we, through variance analysis, how to figure out whether we spend too much. And we also learned different things about figuring out the costs of different components of inventory, of production, and variance analysis, figuring out whether costs too much, who should be responsible. So all those, we learned so much in managerial accounting. What shall they lead us to? Of course, to make decisions. To make decisions for what? To make the company better, to learn from the mistake, to stick, to carry on the strong suits, and to learn from mistake, to improve, to get better. When the company gets bigger, inevitably you have to talk about it. There's a point of time. Right? When you're a small company, of course, if you are the boss, you run the grocery store, you're not salon, whatever, you are the accountants, you are the salespeople, you watch your employees every day, you take care of the sales, and you figure out the costs. You do everything on your own. But when your company gets bigger, it's impossible, right? If a company gets bigger, then every decision is still made at the top. The company essentially, can you imagine a company like Shell, like a Walmart? Everything is made in a very, uh, compared to Walmart size, very small, or Shell is very small office building somewhere in the United States. Of course, it's going to be impossible given those bigger companies. If everything's made on top, what's going to happen is it's going to be like a dinosaur. And where we know where we can find a dinosaur snore is that you go to see a movie or books because you're extinguished already. Companies operate in such a way like a dinosaur won't survive for too long. Why? Because in bigger companies, higher level management, they cannot process all the information to make valid decisions. There are so much information coming every day, every second, and they can only focusing on the top ones. The lower level ones, those ones are too basic about the lower level employees, smaller decisions involving smaller amounts, don't really touch, and it's not worth it for top management people to take a look at. And another thing is, we know why we have to, like we talk about variance analysis. When we look at the variance, we know what we have to do. We have to figure out policies to encourage the good behaviors and management behaviors, lower management, and to discipline the bad things happening, inefficiencies. And to do this, of course, you need the knowledge about detailed production and detailed operation. And the top management, though they don't have access, imagine how many Walmarts we have, how big Shell it is, they cannot really do this. So we need those location, regional level, and even at the factory level, for those people who has better knowledge, who have better knowledge about the performance, about the cost variances, for them to make a decision. And also, there's no way for top management to know every employee. And one of characteristics of a good company is they promote good employees. So those decisions, at least for lower level management employees, it has to be done at local level instead of top level. And also we know that like dinosaurs, if everything made on top, decision will be made extremely slow. Not only talk about the TMI, too much information thing, but when the information goes top through many channels, chains of command, and then pushes down again, other companies might have reacted very like 1 day, 2 days ago already. So for a company today, we see that it's a trend, at least for most companies, for bigger ones, they call delegation or re-centralization. What is re-centralization? Sorry, decentralization. What is decentralization again? Basically, those companies delegate to different smaller parts for them to manage, get a certain level of information, make certain level of decisions according to the authorization, right? For example, a local company can deal with business maybe smaller than 1 million, but for anything 1 million, they have to report to the higher level, something like this, right? So for companies to do this, to make sure this decision making with delegation, decentralization works, companies have to at least figure out a way how to evaluate, how to know whether those smaller, lower level places are getting better, are doing well or not. And how do we do that? We'll just talk about a few things, right? So for example, if there's a sales office, how do we assess sales office? They don't produce, they don't have too much cost. They might have sales commission, but sales commission is probably a percentage of the overall sales. And for sales people, for sales office, their job is to have as much sales as possible. right? So for these, their performance should be evaluated based on two things. One is the total sales revenue, and the other is going to be the quantity volume of sales. Anything cost applied to such places is unfair because they need costs. As long as cost is not too ridiculous, it should be fine. They should be mostly evaluated on how much sales they generate. On the other hand, in companies, you have factory and you have research and development centers. So those companies generate revenue for the places, departments generate revenue for the company? Of course not. But are they important? Production is important. R&D is important, especially for pharmaceutical companies. For example, high-tech R&D is all they have about the future. And the companies have legal departments too, which don't generate. I mean, you are not suing, you're not a law firm. You don't generate any revenue from these activities, but it's going to be your cost. Are those important? Of course it is. So for those companies, we call them cost centers because they only generate costs. So for costs, in the previous ones about revenue, we call them revenue center. And for those only generate costs, no income, we call them cost centers. For cost centers, we should have developed a benchmark based on the actual activities of the company, are supposed to be actual activities of the company, and then compare to the actual cost to determine whether those companies, those smaller departments are up to expectation, better than expectation, or fell short of expectation, and the reasons for why, right? And also, we do have some, for example, smaller parts which operates where they handle both revenue and the costs. We call them profit center, like the cruise ships. They have revenue, they sell, each cruise ship is small and huge in size, but small for the company. They have revenue, and each ship, they have different costs. And restaurants, in a local restaurant, in your sandwich store, they have revenue, they have cost is small. There's no reason to further distinguish between cost and revenue because they are all done together. So we call them profit center. They should be evaluated on profit. If you run a restaurant franchise, and how do you know your buddy did well? That's the boss of one restaurant to look at how much profit they made. I mean, they might do some discounts and they might do some promotions, but as long as the restaurant your guy is responsible for generates enough profit, you should be happy with it, right? I mean, selling each meal for $10, you sell 100. If you discount it to 9, although for each meal you make less, but if you can increase sales to 500, 1,000, then of course it's a much better decision. And as a fourth type, we call them investment centers. Investment center is basically like smaller companies, right? For big companies, sometimes they have overseas branches, they have overseas subsidiaries, which are in charge of not making sales decisions, cost decisions. They're also making investments. So they're essentially like a smaller size of companies. And we're going to be focusing on analyze these type. So like we talked about, how do we evaluate? How do we evaluate a investment center, which is generally like a smaller company? One measure we always do is we use something called ROI, return on investments. And based on the name, return on investments, you know, it refers to a ratio. What is return we talk about? Return talk is defined as operating profits, and investment is average assets. And what's average asset? About an average between average of beginning and ending assets here. So here, if we take a look at this, we know ROI is defined as operating income divided by average assets. And we can also decompose it, right? ROI can also be expressed as margin multiplied with turnover, sales turnover, total asset turnover, because ROI is operating income divided by average assets. And if we express the first part as operating income divided by sales and then multiply with sales divided by average assets, then we have margin and asset turnover rates. And the sales, if you put them together, sales on bottom as the denominator and the numerator, sales in the second part will cancel out. So we still get ROI. However, if you look at ROI, and you can think about it, what's the problem with it? And what's the problem with measuring with all the ratios? By definition, ratio is tricky. Tricky in the sense that a ratio forgoes, think about a ratio is different from amount. When you only focus on ratio, you ignore amounts. So companies might forego profitable opportunities. Why? Because, for example, now you invest $1, you make $1. Right? So $1 becomes your total asset, average asset, and you make $1. So your rate of return is 100%, which is awesome. You don't have too many businesses getting you 100% return rate ROI. However, if an investment center is only measured with ROI, then the company might forego other profit opportunities. For example, what if there's another opportunity? You invest average operating asset is $1,000 and it gives you 500 every year operating income. So the ROI for this new project is 50%. And we know $500 is much more than $1. Every rational personnel is about going to pick at the $500 profit thing. However, if an investment center is evaluated only on ROI, and they might think, okay, I don't want to do this. 100%, give me a lot of bonus, but adding the 550% return project, it might mess me up. At least my bonus will be fewer, will be less, so I don't want to do this. So companies might forego profitable opportunities. And also, if companies refuse to invest in profitable activities, refuse because they have a low investment, low asset, but high return project, they refuse to invest in any project with lower return ROI, but needs more asset investments, then the company will stop growing bigger. You will always stick with your $1 investment, making 100% return every year, but refuse to invest the 10,000, refuse to invest 1,000, no matter how much additional money they're going to bring you, although bringing the return on investment lower. So company will refuse to expand. And the companies also will reject projects that benefits the company in the long run. And why? Again, let's think about it, right? Let's think about it. If you have a project, and like our city projects, and a lot of people know that, okay, let's not talk about politics, okay? Let's just focus on the firms. And for firms, if they want to start a new project, usually what happens is you borrow money from the bank, you raise some new funds, and you start building. And until when you finish building, it takes a while, and you have to push the sales channel. You have to do advertising. You have a lot of initial investments. Like we know when new products come out, people do promotion, discounts, buy two get one free, buy one get free, all these stuff. So initially, no matter how awesome the new product will be and how much money it's going to bring in the future, initial few years, you're going to see very low rates on return on investments. And if a company is only evaluated based on rate on investments, return on investments, then such company will reject those projects that benefits the companies in the long run. So again, what's all these problems? Because size of the firm is not considered. For example, if you want a company to get bigger, company need to size-wise get bigger. If you want a company to take more income-generating activities, then you need companies to, right? You need to think about the total income instead of ratio of income on investment. All those we have to consider, right? And also remember, we talked about for companies to start a new project, to buy stuff, they may have to borrow money. Or for example, companies figure out, if I don't use the money to start a new project, but invest in a trust fund or whatever stuff, then my rate of return might be 5%. Or if I borrow the money from the bank, my rate of return, the interest rate is 5% already. So what do I do, right? So companies can also, firms, investment centers can also require, we borrow the money is 6%. And we want you to have more income, we want your companies to grow bigger, but what we don't want is you generate income less than 5%. So we need your income generation to be more than 5%. As long as it's more than 5%, we are good. As long as your income keeps growing and it's always larger than 5%, the project is good. So that's what we are talking about. So evaluation, the investment center using residual income, that's a good thing because residual income takes into consideration all of these, the size of the firm, the cost of obtaining the investments, the funds for investment, and the actual income generated, right? So residual income is operating income subtract the product of required rate of return and average asset. So for example, if you borrow the money to fund your new project, okay, then the required rate of return is going to be an interest rate, maybe plus something else, tax and everything, but that's going to be a required. And as long as the operating income is higher than that, which is the required income, so the production of required rate of return multiplied with average asset is going to be required operating income, minimum operating income. And as long as the operating income is higher, as long as your residual income is positive, then companies should be good to go, and they should be welcoming all the projects generating positive residual income. So let's do a practice. Leslie Blandings, division manager of Audio Tech Incorporated, was debating the merits of a new product, a weather radio that would put out a warning if the county in which the listener lives were under a severe thunderstorm or tornado alert. Well, I don't think this is going to fly. Many apps can do this, I guess. The budgeted income of the division was $725,000 with operating assets of $3,625,000. The proposed investment would add income of $640,000 and would require an additional investment in the equipment of $400,000. The minimum required return on investment for the company is 12. So we have to calculate ROI and the residual income. We will call it ROI for two things. One, division if the radio project is not undertaken, meaning that what it is right now, and the radio project alone, and what if the radio project is taken. So here we have ROI, and we have residual income, RI, all right? I like to marking things, so no project. What is no project? Okay, no project at all. So the budgeted income was $725,000 with operating asset of this income. What is income again? 365,000, 3625. And operating asset, it's going to be man, what am I doing? Here it is, operating asset is $3,625,000, and the income was $725,000. Okay, and then we also have what? We also have required rate of return, RRR. Required rate of return is 12%. Is 12%, 12%, 12% for three scenarios, all right? So required income it's not a residual income, this time it's required income is, and we can figure it out. So here the return on investment is defined as operating income divided by average operating assets, and we have these numbers readily available. So operating income is $725,000, and the operating asset is $3,625,000. So clearly we have. Let me just. I have this OCD thing almost. I need to make sure the format is correct, readable. And we have here. So required income is going to be numeric as well. And then here, this is rate of return, and this is, I'll show it in the percentage form. This is 20%. And then remember, RI is residual income. Residual income is defined as a difference between the operating income and the required operating income. And how do we know what is the required operating income? So we know that the required rate of return is 12% on investments already. And the investment here, operating asset, is $3,625,000 without if the new project is not taken. So the required income for when the project is not taken is operating asset without the new project, which is $3,625,000 multiplied with the rate of return required 12%. gives you 435,000. That is required. And we know the income is 125, so we know it's better than required. The residual is the difference between the operating income and the required income. Here, 435, it gives you 290,000. Okay. And the project alone. And what do we know about projects? Okay. Let's take a look. The investment would add income of 640,000. 640,000 would add income 640,000, and the required additional investment is 4 million. Additional investment will be additional operating assets, and we are thinking about just this project. Okay, so here we know a few things. What is the rate on investments for the new project? It's going to be operating income divided by operating assets, the investment. So we're going to have something called that is 16%. And we know it's still higher than 12%, so residual income should be positive as well, but let's still calculate it. What is the required income again? Required income is basically the new project is going to need 4 million investments, and whoever contributes the money, or the company or the bosses want the minimum return. Anything below 12%, they won't take it, and they want to know what's in their pocket. The part more than 12% of the investment, which is 4 million. So 4 million here, multiply with 12%, give you 480,000. That's the minimal return required. And the residual is the expected income, subtract the required income, gives you 160. Here, division with new project. Division with new project, good thing we have everything already. So let's take a look. So without the project, the income will be 725,000, and the new project alone will have 640,000. So if division plus the new project is going to give you income, 1,365,000, and without the investment new project, the operating asset is 3,625,000, and the new project you need investment 4 million. So we know that for the total operating asset, the division with the new project is going to be 7,625,000. And now we can again calculate return on investments, rate of return on investments, whatever, and we know it's going to be some number between 20% and 16%. So here we divide the expected income for the whole division with the new project by the operating asset for the whole division with the new project, give you somewhere 18%, which is exactly where it should be. And for the new division with the new investment, still the rate of return is 12%. Remember, it's a percentage ignoring size. Even if it's getting bigger, you still need 12% rate of return. So the required income, the minimum income required, anything lower than that, the people won't do it. It's going to be the expected total asset, total investment for the division with the new project, multiply with 12%, that's 915,000. And so the residual income is this 1,365,000 subtracted by 915,000. It gives you 450,000. So this is here is a rate. It's a return on investments for the division with no new projects. For the new project alone, for the division with a new project, and this is the residual income. And this sheet allows us to see where all the numbers come from. Thank you very much.